Thank you very much. All right, so first of all, we'd like to welcome Senator John Martin, who decided to join us today. Thank you very much for coming, John Martin, or as I call him, Big John. Right? Okay, so here's how, just a little housekeeping. If you wouldn't mind turning off your cell phones, if you have your cell phones on, if you could put those on silent for everybody. Then additionally, we have a ton of questions. We're going to try to get to as many as we can. So we have different questions, some for the senator, some for the congressman, and we'll keep them coming. Please be respectful of other folks, and let's have a great time. Thank you so much.
Hey, first of all, thanks everybody for coming. Before we start, we're gonna say the Pledge of Allegiance, so can you please stand? Flags over here. I pledge allegiance and thank you guys. So one quick thing, and I think it's important, when I served in the state legislature, and Jonathan knows this, before every session, the Pledge of Allegiance is said. And every member that's on the floor, you do it. So you really get in the habit of doing it. In Congress, we do it when the floor is opened, but hardly anybody's on the floor when it's opened. So at the federal level, the members actually get kind of out of the practice of saying the pledge. If you're on the floor, you do it, but if you're not there, you're already moving through your day. So we always want to make sure that we say the pledge and we honor the flag before we do any other business. I think we're ready, or they're still reading questions. All right, so since they're still reading questions, let me give you a couple of things. It's been pretty wild in Washington, as you know. Look, so let me be specific about what's happening right now. Right now, we're in the middle of trying to figure out how to go through the appropriations process. There was a call about an hour ago, and I wasn't able to make this call because I was here with members of our community. But what we were going through was making sure we have the detailed information to figure out how we're going to fund the government after September 30. The position of myself and a lot of my colleagues is that we have to cut federal spending. So there are some commitments that have already been made about defense spending and VA spending. I think defense spending is going to come in around $886 billion. VA spending is going to be about another $150 billion, give or take. And then after that, we're looking at the federal agencies, and our desire is to cut federal agency spending back to pre-COVID-19 levels. And I think some will be concerned about that, and they would say, well, why are you looking at cutting spending? And the key thing is that we cannot have federal agencies who are just bloated for bloated's sake. They all have a mission, they have a job to do. We want to make sure that they're focused on their mission and not focused on a lot of other things that they have no business doing. It's unfortunate, but mission creep does occur in agencies like it occurs in businesses sometimes. And the way you keep them focused is to make sure that they're spending at the appropriate level. And so that's what we're doing right now, and it's going to be a lot of work in our little mini break before we go back in July. The second big thing that has been going on, you guys might ask questions about investigations, and I'm going to come to that in a second. But there was a debt ceiling that was passed. Now, I did not support the debt ceiling deal. I did not. But I think it's important to explain why. I think that, is there a concern with the nation's debt? Yes. Is there a cause or a reason to raise the debt ceiling? Yes. But my view is that we should have had agreements on significantly larger spending cuts if we were going to raise the nation's debt. And the reason why I feel that way is, in my career, when I was lending money, if I lend additional money to a business and they have terrible spending habits, I'm not going to be repaid. And actually, the business will suffer as a result because they're going to be so caught up in doing so many other things that they're not focused on what it means to actually keep the going concern, to keep the business model moving smoothly. And now as your representative in Congress, my job is to make sure that the United States is operating smoothly and efficiently. So even though the nation's debt ceiling had to be addressed, Washington, in my view, did not do enough with respect to cutting spending. And so because of that, that's why I felt that it was the wrong deal, and I voted no. And so that's where we are from a financial standpoint. Specifically to just some things we're doing in the office, and we're going to come to questions. Specifically, a couple things that we're doing in the office. We continue to be one of the thought leaders in Congress with respect to nuclear power. Now, some people might say, like, why are you focused so much on nuclear energy? But nuclear power is critical for our infrastructure and for our electrical grid. It is. It simply is. The number one thing we should be doing is making sure that we have cheap and readily available energy for all of our citizens. And if your energy levels are cheap and readily and plentiful, it allows businesses to thrive. It allows seniors to not feel trapped with rising electric bills. If you are, a poor family or somebody middle income, it allows you to continue to take care of the things you need for your family instead of worrying about the light bill. Like I remember my mom would be like, turn the lights off, the light bill. You don't pay it, I do. And so rising electricity costs hurt everybody. And so that's one of the main reasons we lead there. And we're gonna continue to do that work. So with that, I'm gonna stop. Senator Martin, this is weird calling you Senator Martin. That's weird. Ladies and gentlemen, I've known Jonathan Martin for 12 years now, we've known each other. I never thought I would call him a senator. I also don't like standing next to him because he's bigger than me. So real quick, ladies and gentlemen, Senator John Martin.
Thanks, Congressman. I never thought I'd call you Congressman either. I thought you were going to go straight from state rep to the White House, but we'll deal with that later. So I'm fortunate enough to work in Tallahassee on behalf of State Senate District 33, which is everything in Lee County that's west of I-75. Our district, as you all know, raise your hand if you live in District 33, Lee County. All right. Y'all know what we've been focused on up in Tallahassee, bringing money back for Hurricane Ian recovery. You can clap for that. My first session, didn't think that I was going to have that much weight on my shoulders, but we have a great team, and we have a great governor, and we have a great administration in Tallahassee. Kevin Guthrie with the Department of Emergency Management has been doing a phenomenal job and knows very well what we're going through here on the ground in Southwest Florida. So the governor just signed our budget, and it's a little bit different than the budget that y'all get to sign. I know you missed your days in Tallahassee when we actually had budgets. And exactly, and our budgets are balanced by Florida Constitution. Our budget is the biggest it's ever been, and it gets bigger because more people keep moving to Florida and there's more revenue. It doesn't mean that we get less responsible with that money. It means we have a bigger duty to make sure that we spend that money wisely. So $115 billion, over 10% of it went straight to reserves. And then there's an additional few billion that went into other trust fund reserves. So we're saving money, setting it aside for a rainy day, but we're also using a tremendous amount of money to help here in Southwest Florida. The reason we didn't get more money from our budget this year is because we physically can't spend it all in this fiscal year. So there will be more money coming next year and the years after. And our friends in the Panhandle who went through Hurricane Michael 6 years ago, they're still recovering, and there's money still going to them to help them through that process. We have a long way to go before we make a full recovery, but Tallahassee, we have a commitment from our governor and from our administration in Tallahassee that we're going to get paid to rebuild our infrastructure. This is a very important part of the state. Everybody in Tallahassee knows that. We also did some really groundbreaking things in education and criminal justice with our budget. And I'm happy to, if there's any questions about that tonight, answer some of those questions as well. But if you have any other questions, I have an office here in Fort Myers on state-related issues. I'm more than happy to help. And two, actually. Oh, two, actually. All right. Well, we'll get into that. I think most of the questions are for our congressman, though. So I got two. Oh, you do them right now? All right. Okay, Kaylee Jones, I spoke to you just before the meeting started. Would you consider supporting a safe harbor baby box law that would allow a mother to leave their baby in a baby box anonymously, as opposed to what current law requires, which is a mother who wants to give up the child has to physically turn the child over to officials? I spoke to Nick from my office right before I got up here, and we're going to be reaching out to you to look into this and see how we can save babies' lives and make sure that we're protecting as many children as possible. So. Okay, are you here, Kaylee? You can stand up and, okay. All right, thank you. Thanks for this important topic, this important issue. And then, should I do another one, or do you want to do one? All right.
It's the John Martin show.
All right. That's why they're all here for me, right? From Noel Stasco. Is there any way to move the Cape Coral Bridge project further north where the real congestion is? It does not make sense to spend this amount of money when there is only congestion 1/2 hour in the morning and 1/2 hour in the evening. So you're talking about the Cape Coral Bridge. Trying to remember what they're going to do. I know getting rid of the toll booths. They're redoing the entire bridge. Does anybody live in South Cape, commute to Fort Myers, or the other way around on the bridge? That bridge gets really annoying during rush hour, doesn't it? A third bridge from. And they're also not going to be adding lanes to that bridge as well, which, yeah, I know there's probably good reasons for it. I was made aware of this project after session, so I'm looking forward to meeting with the county officials to find out why we're not expanding a lane or why that's the best use of the money. I know a lot of times, I believe this bridge is old and it's due to be changed, and that's the impetus for having that. So you can't just not fix the bridge or not replace it. But are we replacing it with the best use, with the proper amount of lanes for the amount of traffic that bridge sees, and then also dealing with the pinches on both sides of the river with the McGregor corridor and then the Del Prado corridor, and making sure that if we're going to be making big changes, how can we make the traffic flow faster? Those are my two questions.
All right. Well, hold out. Yeah. That one.
Got it.
Stay there. But actually, hold on, I gotta, because...
Wait. I believe the 10th Amendment. I don't think you can tell me what to do just because you're with the federal government.
I'm not gonna tell you, but you're big, man, and they can't see me from over there.
Okay.
All right, not to have too much fun, but like I stepped back this way and I was standing behind them, and usually I could do that. And then I was like, wait, nobody can see me. Let me move to his side. That's not a big joke, because I'm big.
You're normal size.
You're bigger. Like, I'm not normal size, but all right, enough of the fun. I love you, man. I've known John Martin a long time. He's a good friend. Although I do rag him about his size. All right, so first question, Veery Ryan. Is I gonna say that right? Veery? Oh, how you doing? Hi, Veery. Okay, what's the status of Congress declaring Hurricane Ian a qualified disaster? So is this I want to make sure I'm clear. Is this in reference to IRS treatment or, okay. So here's what happened, and here's what we're doing. What happened is that in the last tax package that was passed, they did not put this provision into the tax package for the IRS. It's something that's been in every tax package as far as I know, but it didn't go in last year. We filed a bill, and actually my colleague Greg Stubbe, he also filed a bill. They're both in the Ways and Means Committee right now as we speak. We're both working it with Chairman Smith, and Well, I'm going to tell you that whether it's my bill or his bill, we have strong confidence that it's going to become law so that people who have to deal with, I believe it's the qualified deduction about disaster recovery, roughly 10%, will be able to file an amendment to their taxes. Or they'll be able to amend their previous taxes, refile that, and then get those credits associated with the Hurricane Ian disaster. It should have been in the tax package, but the previous Congress, this is why I don't like when things just go through without regular order, because Speaker Pelosi just missed it. That's not, nobody wants to hear that, but the truth is, when we were going through bills in the last Congress, there were no amendments. So even though if a member wanted to bring something, they didn't take amendments. Everything went straight to the floor. All right, so. It is not clear yet if it'll happen before October. I don't know that for sure. What I can tell you is that I do believe it'll happen. I think Senator Scott and Senator Rubio are both supporting it in the Senate, but we have to just get the measure through the House. What's going through right now is appropriations. I can't say if it's going to happen before October 15th. I can't speak to that. I don't know yet, because there's another tax package that Ways and Means is moving right now, and that's much more about business expensing and other items associated with that in the tax code, and this provision is not a part of that package. But I know Chairman Smith has talked to both of our offices about making sure we get that through the House of Representatives. I think it'll be taken up in the Senate as well, and I think it's not something you want to be a part of the tax package per se, because in the tax package, that becomes more political, and then it gives members in the Senate to say, I don't want to support it. And so that's, I know it is, but that's why I'm saying, I think it's going to move on its own accord, or maybe with a couple other things. Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
These are significant numbers that we're talking about, and we have, as a tax practitioner, I have, hundreds and hundreds of tax returns on hold, trying to, explain this to everyone that, we're waiting on this, and Michael, it was done by August 15th, so it was done before the deadline. We've been told by the FICPA and our regulating bodies that we were going to get something before the deadline, so if that's not going to be the case, then we really have a problem.
I don't know what they're talking about. All I could tell you is that in Congress we have two vehicles for success. Ways and Means Committee is going through both of those right now. I anticipate it'll pass because I agree this is bipartisan, it's not an issue. But when you stick it into a larger package, something else in the package could become an issue. And that's the point I want to create. That's the point I want to make. So we are definitely on it. We are working on it. Like I said, we have two pathways for success in the House. I don't anticipate why it would be a problem in the Senate, and we'll go from there. Okay. No, yes, ma'am. No, and we once we found out about it, we went ahead and made sure that we introduced it, and then we went from there. All right. Okay. This question is from Susan Ball. Why hasn't FEMA declared Hurricane Ian a natural disaster? I'm assuming this is the same question? Okay, all right, I'm assuming that's the same one. All right. To John Malili, Cape Coral. Did I say your last name right? Yes. Okay. What and when is Congress going to impeach President Biden for obvious corruption? So I guess people are interested in this question. All right.
So here's my comment behind that. We have no confidence left in this government.
Yes. We hear that.
We know we put millions of dollars. Anyone in here that committed that crime would be a political prisoner in Washington, D.C. in solitary confinement, where this country is
Well, I would say on the last point, I would say hold on to that one for a second. So I sit on the Oversight Committee. I think everybody in the room knows this. A couple things. Number one, the information that is now available to the public, that would not have come out if we weren't in control of the Oversight Committee. So we were able to get to the bottom of this. With everything that has come forward now, everything from suspicious activity reports at the Treasury Department, which I've read, there's about 200 of them. I've read about 30 of them. Between the different members of the Oversight Committee, we've read all these reports. They are real reports. A suspicious activity report is a report that is filed with by a financial institution with the Treasury Department. So this is not a political document. When we were reading those, it became pretty clear that many financial institutions were concerned about aspects of money laundering and concealing funds from the IRS. They were concerned about it then. We went from there to being able to depose certain individuals based upon what we read, and that information led us to see that they set up these LLCs, which were set up, that we've had the legal filings, that multiple accounts were set up. We have those documents around that, and the purpose was to move money through the various accounts. It was because of Chuck Grassley in the Senate and people who contacted Senator Grassley that we found out about the forms that the FBI have from their whistleblower. When reading those forms, we found out about the whistleblower saying, the confidential human source saying that, well, according to the FBI, this human source is highly valuable and highly credible. And they've been paying this human source, they paid him or her more than $200,000 over the last 8 years to deliver information to the FBI. So they've documented on the FBI's form that the human source says that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden both took $5 million from somebody associated with Burisma, and the purpose was to get the prosecutor in Ukraine fired, to take the heat off Burisma. I think the thing that gets lost in the shuffle is that the reason why Burisma wanted the prosecutor gone is because Burisma wanted to buy into a holding company in the United States in the oil and gas field in order to raise capital in the United States. And they knew that if they were under investigation in their home country, they would never be able to raise capital in the United States. So that's why the money was conveyed according to the confidential human source. That led to the IRS whistleblowers coming forward in the Ways and Means Committee, and the IRS whistleblowers, one of whom is the supervisory agent on the case, has testified that their investigations were downplayed or held back, and that came from the political brass at IRS and the Department of Justice. So I say all that to say that my comments to the speaker and to my colleagues is that, in my view, we actually have a two-track process for impeachment. I think the first is with Merrick Garland, the Attorney General. The second is with the President of the United States. Now, I want to be clear on this, and this is the part where this is really concerning. With what is going on at the political levels of the IRS and in the Department of Justice and the FBI, there is a complete lack of trust with the political brass of these agencies. I think you have a lot of men and women who work in these agencies. They are patriots, they are good people, they're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're independents, they do their job, they follow the law. But what we have seen is that it is the political brass that has caused so many problems. So I think that impeachment is one thing, but wholesale reform of these agencies at the political level is another. And that must be done. That must be done. The last thing is, and even when we took the majority and we knew in oversight that we were going to look into these suspicious activity reports because we were given information about it and we really wanted to follow through. And even from the beginning, people said, "Oh, okay, you guys are in charge. Now go and impeach." And my statement's always been clear: impeachment is serious. This is a serious charge against an official of our government if we go to that level, and we shouldn't cheapen it just because of political getbacks, even though what happened to the former president was wrong and should not have happened. That you got to have the evidence, you got to have the facts. And I'll just tell you, from everything I've seen, we're close to having all the evidence we need, and I'll leave it at that. Okay. But that's why I say hold on to that last point, because
They did so much damage already. By the time you guys come up to the House votes for impeachment, but the Senate is the one who holds the hearing, and the Senate has the majority.
yes.
And they have also the deciding factor with the vice president, who is also illegitimate. So by the time you guys get there, there's going to be so much damage to our country that by the time you turn around the FBI, you have to go 17 layers deep and fire them all because they're all treasonous.
Well,
The IRS, the FBI, the DOJ, the Attorney
but
General's office.
okay, but hold on, and look, I want to. You raise a very important point, and again, I just want to be factual on this. I agree with you. There is a lot of damage that has been done by the FBI and the DOJ, and I could also add the CDC and then the IRS and some of these agencies. But I think that, everybody in this room loving this country, we have a choice to make. The choice is, the first is, one, you're obviously here, you're talking to your representative, so I already know what you think. Number two, and Southwest Florida is different, and even Florida is different now, but there was a time not too long ago where Florida was a 1% state, if that. It was a 0.5% state. And I think the people of Florida have made their voices heard. And so the people are going to have to speak to this. And our job is to provide the information and for them to make decisions. And then the third piece is, if we do have the ability to make these changes, we can't mess around. We got to go make the changes. And you can't be concerned about, but hold on. I can't speak to what people did before I got here. I can only talk to you about what I'm going to do. We can't be concerned about what media or people who don't agree with us politically will think. The country cannot survive if there is no trust in the institutions. And for me, it's about the country surviving. I got kids. The country has to survive. So my focus is, let's find out where the problems are. Let's root the problems out. My job in Congress is to make sure that our political leadership understands that this is not a game. We're not doing this for clicks and to do TV interviews, and trust me, I do enough. It's not for that. It's to actually have the changes occur because the country needs that in order for people to trust their government and be supportive of our institutions. And if we continue to be so divided as a people, then we're going to have significantly more cultural issues in our country that are going to be just much bigger than the issues we already have with our government. So I'm saying that to say that I think that accountability is coming because you have a new crop of members, not just me, a lot of new members who've come to Congress. And I told the speaker real quick one day, I said, Speaker, this isn't 2010. This isn't the guys who got elected in the Tea Party wave and they went to Washington and are just trying to cut spending and cut regulations. I was like, this is a different breed. I was like, what you're dealing with now are men and women who watched the 2010 guys go through. and they watched President Trump go through. And they're coming in and they don't care about political careers. And they don't care about becoming chairmans and chairwomen of committees. They care about the country. And you will not have the votes for anything you want to do without making sure we're serious about repairing this government. And that's why the speaker was out yesterday saying that based upon what he sees, if they collect a little bit more evidence, there'll be inquiries of impeachment for Merrick Garland. I never would have thought I'm being clear with you. I never would have thought I would have heard Kevin McCarthy say that. But sir, here's what I'm gonna tell you. And trust me, I went 15 rounds with Kevin McCarthy, okay? So I'm not just saying it. Like, I've had the internal battles with him. We work well together. Have we had shouting matches? Yes, we have. And I'm telling you that I can't speak to previous speakers. I can only tell you about the one I'm dealing with. He understands very well that the members of our conference are not going to put up with business as usual. That's what I can tell you. Oh, I'm going to come to the next issue, but let me expand a little bit further. We had 11 members vote no on a rule, on a random bill. Now you might say, what does voting for a rule, no for a rule even mean? Like, what are you talking about? In a legislative body, in order for the bill to be voted on, the rule must pass. So in a legislative body, voting against a rule from a operational perspective is like a death sentence for a member in a political party. The unwritten rule is, and you know this, you never vote against the rule, or you never vote against the procedural motion, because the procedural motion is how you maintain control of the floor to actually pass the stuff. We had 11 members just on the spur of the moment, just like that, say, we're voting no on the rule. And they went and did it. And House leadership was freaking out. They're like, what the heck? My phone is ringing. Byron, what's going on? I'm like, I didn't know they were voting no on the rule. This just happened. And they're like, well, why did it happen? And I said, because one of the people that voted no on the debt ceiling got threatened about one of their bills. And members got upset, and this is the reaction. So when I tell you, you have members of Congress who are not doing the old political games of, I'll come home and talk tough and I'm gonna go to DC and just do what the leadership tells me. That's not happening. It's not happening. It's not happening. In January, when you had 19 members go against the speaker of against the leader of the party and say, no, we don't want you. And then it became 20. And then, my name goes in nomination. You gotta understand, in Washington, people in Washington thought we were nuts. The lobbyists are freaking out. The other members they don't know what's going on. I had a conversation with a senator, I think a little bit after that first week. And he goes, Byron, what you guys did over there, nobody thought you would be successful. What you guys have done has now started to break the ice in the Senate. Because we saw what you did in the House, and there was a focus, and now in the Senate, members of the Senate are starting to look at each other like, well, shoot, why not? It's a different ball game. It's a different ball game. What I'm trying to tell you is coming back to the point of accountability, it's coming. There are members who are not putting up with this, and they're not me. Like, they're not putting up with this stuff anymore.
When do you think we're going to see a difference?
I think that's going to start coming as these investigations wind down and the other proceedings start up. and I am talking about impeachment, I think we are going to see impeachment proceedings. I think that is going to start. But at the end of the day, I think it's actually happening with the appropriations process. So to be somewhat technical, and I talked about it, this calendar year, as long as things hold and members hold firm, for the first time in recent memory in Washington, D.C., we're going to cut spending. Not cut the rate of growth, cut spending. I got the spreadsheets on my laptop right now. I got them right now. Why is that possible? Because you have enough members who are saying, no, this is enough. I have colleagues who will say to me, but Byron, you know, the agencies are only 11% of the budget. Why? You know, the big stuff, you got to tackle the big stuff. Why are we so focused on this? And I tell them, because if this town never gets the muscle memory of how to just move spending down, you think you're going to touch the big stuff? Get out of here. You think you're going to really reform, and I know this is like the third rail, you think you're really going to reform Social Security and Medicare, which are going insolvent in 8 years. 8 years. 2031, 2033, give about. You think you're really, but hold on now. Actually, no, not even. The Ukraine money is a pittance compared to what's going on with Social Security and Medicare. You think this town is going to do what's right on behalf of the American people if they don't even know how to just cut spending at 10% of the budget? The town doesn't know how to do this. The town's never been asked to do this. Well, it gets asked. They never listen. The town keeps going. So what you got to have are members who are committed, and I'm telling you they are here, who are committed to making sure that happens. We're having a discussion right now in the House of Representatives to cut $120 billion in year-over-year spending. Washington has never done that. Never. Not this version of Washington, D.C., not the Washington, D.C. that's been created since the Great Society and since Richard Nixon created massive agencies. It's never happened. But we're committed to that now. So when you ask me, but when is the change coming? I'm telling you, that's the begin. That's the beginning. You got to take the step you have in front of you, and then once you show that it's possible, it gives you the inertia to take the additional steps. When we did Limit, Save, Grow, which was our offer in the debt ceiling, which I voted for. I voted for our initial offer. We were going to cut about $1 trillion in year one spending in that bill. $1 trillion, year one spending. And people ask me, they go, Byron, would you vote to raise the debt ceiling if we cut $1 trillion? And I was like, yes, that's actually a good deal. You mean I'm gonna cut my spending down $1 trillion and allow them to borrow $3 trillion? Yeah, I'm good with that. That works. That makes sense financially. I had members in our conference, they were like, Byron, I can't support this. I can't support this. I'm like, yes, you can. They're like, I can't support this. I can't support this. People back home will be upset. I said, no, they won't. They're looking for people to actually deliver real solutions. When that bill passed off the House floor, mind you, no bill like that has ever passed off the House floor in the modern era of Washington. When it passed off the House floor, the Senate was shocked that it passed. The White House was shocked that it passed. And when these members who were concerned about it went home to their districts, people back home said, thank you for finally doing something. These members remember this. And so you got to take these. I want to fix it all right now. I do, trust me. My wife will be happy. She's here. She'd be like, great, they fixed it, come home. That's what she would want. She's clapping for that. But you got to take the baby steps that are in front of you. I want it to be more, but I know what I'm dealing with. And I'm telling you, whether you're talking about accountability, impeachment, spending, the border, which I know will come to, it's in the question set, there are members of Congress, not just yours, who are committed to this. I know 35 of them right now. But hold on.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we stop
Well, Jesse, I got it. Chill, man. I got it. I got it. I'm gonna address the zero-based budgeting because I walked into budget numbers. That's a process we're literally working on right now because the leadership wants to spend $115 billion in rescinded money. It's super technical. Here's the pot of money for the agencies, okay? There is another pot of money that Joe Biden and the Democrats stuck outside of the budget. Another pot of money sitting over here. And so what the leadership said was, we're gonna cut this money down, and then we're gonna take some of this money from over here and then build the agencies up to a certain level. That's the $120 billion we gotta go find to stop this from moving over there. I'm telling them no. I looked at the speaker, I said, sir, I'm not voting for that. Sorry. We better find the cuts. Let's go find it. I'm not voting for that. So there's a process right now where members are actively in 8 of the 12 appropriation budgets, and we're essentially, for the first time, looking line by line. The call I made to one of the speaker's key guys who's helping organize the House was, I said, listen, I need the spreadsheets. I'm a finance guy. Don't give me the bill text. That doesn't do anything for me because I'm just reading it. Well, what's that 100 million for? I don't know. Okay, let me read the next thing. Give me a spreadsheet, whatever the budget staff uses, so I can look at every line item, take the budget in totality, and say, okay. Oh, and I also told them, I said, and I need the trajectory in spending from FY 2018 to now. So I could see the rate of growth in all these different line items and be like, well, hold on. How come the Australian sloth test doubles in funding? We don't need that. Slash that back to 2018, and then that's how you do it. All right. So that's the work that members are pushing on right now as we speak to do. So our plan is to get back to Washington when we go back in 2 weeks, a week and a half now, with a plan of what programs we're cutting, what programs we're shrinking to cut $120 billion so we don't pull junk money from over here that was passed in a bunch of different reconciliation bills and still rescind this money. The IRS agents, that's over here. That's part of that. Still rescind that money. But now when you go negotiate with the Senate and the White House to pass a budget, because you're going to have to negotiate, you come in low with your spending. You negotiate policy changes and spending levels. You get this town to actually cut spending, And then when people go home, when members go home, and Americans are saying, thank you for being responsible and cutting spending, you know what everybody's gonna say when they come back? Hey, let's go cut some more spending. Let's go find more. But you gotta build that. And that's what we're trying to do. Okay, now let me get back. Here we go. This is from Sandra in Fort Myers. Why doesn't ACS close till the scrubbers are in place? Who will redo the cloud map? And when are they starting to fund? When are they going to start to fund the care for ill people? Okay, so this question, Sandra, you here? Where are you? Is Sandra still here? Oh, maybe she. Oh, hi, Sandra. So this question is in reference to the medical sterilization plant here in Fort Myers, where the EPA has come out with a finding that, according to their analysis, and I want to be clear about the analysis, over 70 years of exposure to ETO, it's a dispersal from the plant, that 70 years of exposure has carcinogenic impacts on human beings. The plants here in Fort Myers. There's about 5 such plants in Florida, 86 across the country. We have one here. This plant's been in operation for 12 years. The EPA actually did a study a few years ago, and they said at a certain release level that the impacts are cancerous for people. The plant right now is installing the scrubbers to mitigate what was going on. Now, we had a previous meeting with parents and other concerned citizens about an hour ago before you came in. That's kind of why you were in the foyer so long, because I was meeting with those parents and other people from the community. There's a couple concerns. Number one, well, what happens if people start getting sick and they don't even know? So what we're going to look at is apparently, and we're going to do some more research, but one of our medical professionals in our community brought forth information that CDC can actually provide tests to people in the area so they can actually get tested for it and to see if it's in their bloodstream. So that's one. Number two, when is the work going to be done? According to the company and according to the EPA and according to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, these scrubbers are going to be installed in the next week, and that they should have testing and validation over a couple of weeks. I want to make sure I get to the third. Redo the cloud map. Now to this one, I'm not sure about how they would redo the cloud map, and here's why. The EPA did not do an air sample study. What the EPA did is they just essentially said they did a statistical model, a probabilistic model about the impacts of consistent exposure and what that means. And they took a dispersal radius, but it is not more granular than that. So on that one, I have to get back with the EPA and ask them that question, and we'll make sure we go ahead and do that. Okay. Yes, ma'am. So that's why, again, like, I hear what you're saying. If like the radius map stops like right here, you can't stand over here and be like, "Oh, I'm good." Like that, it just doesn't work that way. That's not life. That's not reality. And so what we want to be able to do is make sure that we understand exactly what the EPA's modeling characteristics around the radius really mean, like in the real world, where the wind blows and stuff like that. So we want to make sure we understand that as well. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. You wanted to add to that? No? Okay. Your kids go to ECS? You sure you don't want to talk about it? You're going to talk about what at the DEP behind closed doors? Wait, come here for a second. So you're going to talk about it with the DEP behind closed doors?
With my staff.
With your staff?
Yeah, I want to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
I want to get numbers. I have 3 little kids. My oldest is 4, my youngest is 1. They go to ECS. ECS is a great school, but they're getting a lot of attention, Dr. Hunt. They're getting a lot of attention because of what's going on. There's a whole lot of other schools in that area. If the wind blows a little bit further to the east, you have SFCA that's right there. You have Chico's. There's thousands and thousands of people that go to work every single day in that area. So it's not just one school. I want to find out who knew what, when they knew it, what the history of the releases are. Have they gotten worse over time? Have they gotten less over time? Just so we have a better picture of what's really going on. But I haven't heard anything from DEP, so I want to reach out to them, give them the opportunity to explain what their level of involvement is. Why is the EPA discovering this information and reporting it now? Why is it coming through the federal government instead of the state? What's the local Department of Health doing? Do we need to beef up testing or any sort of awareness? Do we need to have any sort of local government mapping, just so we know where these potential areas are? Are we communicating with the EPA? So that's what I want to find out before I start making any sort of broad blanket statements. But trust me, my kids go there. I live right off of Daniels, probably literally right outside that little line, and I take deep breaths too, so I can inhale a lot of air from over here.
I believe you.
So yeah, we're concerned, and it's a new thing, and I want to make sure that before I make any statements about what we're going to do, that I have all the information available.
Well, I think to close the circle on this, I know Senator Martin's on it. My office, we're on it. We were on with EPA and DEP yesterday, and we have follow-up questions that came from community members that we want to follow up with and ask. We also asked the EPA to keep its comment period open on this. They were telling residents it closed the 25th, and I'm saying that's not good enough. Like, how are you going to drop a mailer in somebody's mailbox, say, hey, cancer's in the air, and they'd be like, oh, by the way, the comment period closes. Like, no, that's That's not good enough. So we've commented them on that, and we're going to be pushing with them to make sure this work gets done, and that it's not like a one-time deal. Oh yeah, they put it in and nobody's monitoring. We want to make sure that the ongoing monitoring continues, and so that we're in communication with all of you, so you know fully about what's going on in your community. So that's where we are there. You can stay there if you want to. It's not too close. Freddie Wright, excuse me. It's Freddie Wright. Where is he? Freddie, how you doing? How could the USA let a balloon go across the United States? I have no plumb idea. Freddie, I'm just going to tell you what I would do. I'll be like, look up in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's a Chinese spy balloon. Shoot it down. That's it. I don't even understand why this is so hard. This is one of a number of things, which is why I'm concerned about the president being compromised. Because how could you currently know? And then the news media is following it, and they told us, they're like, well, the reason they go, Congressman, the reason why we don't want to shoot it down is because what happens if we miss? I'm not kidding. This is what they told us. And I'm like, well, then shoot again. Like I missed, dang, shoot again. I'm a basketball junkie. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Oh, I missed. They're like, that would be embarrassing for us. Shoot again, okay. So no, it shouldn't have happened. I think the thing that was more damning is the administration lied about it. They said that there was not information being collected. Then, lo and behold, oh yeah, they did collect information. And the moon just happened, the balloon it looked like a moon though. It just happened to go over sensitive areas dealing with our nuclear installations. You would say you can't make this stuff up, but I'm telling you, as your member of Congress, you cannot make this stuff up. And I think the worst thing about it is that this administration, we send letters all the time requesting information. It's a little bit better now because, being in the majority, we vote for appropriations, so they respond to us. But when we were in the minority, Jesse will tell you, no response. We'd be like, hey, we have this issue with our district, we need to find this out. Crickets, no response. That's what was happening. You would get no response. Remember, I would ask them, hey, I need this information. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. No response. So that's unfortunately this administration. And look, that's not I don't want that to be taken as a partisan statement. The White House and the federal agencies work for all Americans. In my office, we don't check your political registration about whether we're going to help you or not. We don't do that. You're a resident of our district, a citizen of our country. We help you figure out what needs to get done. I don't ask your politics. My staff doesn't ask your politics. We just go do it. We can disagree when it comes to political season, but when it's the things of our government, they should just respond and do the right thing. The sky balloon, that made no sense to me whatsoever. And I'll tell you, Freddie, it wasn't just Republicans. You had Democrat members who were just basically like, what the is going on? I'm in a church, so I won't say what they were saying. Pat Chu, Fort Myers. How can we unite the GOP? Why aren't we united? Pat, that's a good question. Look, I'm gonna give you my viewpoint of that. John, you can step in. Jonathan was the former chair of Lee County GOP. So Jonathan, you can chime in whenever you want. I'm gonna give you my 2 cents. I've been involved in the party for 14 years now. We have our own internal fights as Republicans, happens a lot. We're independent thinkers. We all love the Constitution. We all think it should be this way, and that's our focus, whether it's policy, whether it's politics, whether it's personality, or whatever the case might be. But in my view, the country's on the line. And let's just call a spade a spade. Listen, you want to support President Trump for president? Go right ahead. I'm supporting him for president. You want to support Ron DeSantis for president? No. Go right ahead. There are people who are doing that. You saw the claps went lower, but it's true. There are people in our community who are, and that's okay. Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, whoever else, okay. But when the primaries are done, we have a member of the United States Congress who's in the Senate, who is in the Senate for one reason, and that is because his party stayed united regardless of the actual facts surrounding this individual. And his name is John Fetterman. This is no disrespect to the man. He had a stroke. Strokes can be debilitating. But as a member of the House, I'm telling you, this job is hard. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort. I come home, my wife is like, yay, you're home, let's do this. And I'm like, I need a day. Like, I'm tired. And I'm healthy. I could imagine what it is if you're recovering from a stroke. You're not capable of doing the job. But his party did not care. And they supported him anyway. That's wrong. It's wrong. Dianne Feinstein. This is a tragedy. Everybody's seen the pictures. It's wrong. This is not Republican, Democrat. It is wrong. She has serious health issues. It's wrong. But they don't bat an eye. I'm gonna leave the president alone for a moment. I bash him enough. But it's wrong. It is physically, it's easy for everybody to see how wrong this is. They don't even bat an eye. They're like, oh yeah, there's nothing to see here. As a Republican member, and I try not to have town halls, I'm keeping as much partisanship out of this because this is a public town hall for everybody. But as a Republican, listen, man, when the primaries are over, we're one party. We're one party. One. I'm going to talk about George Santos for a moment. Listen, what happened with George in New York does not look good. It doesn't look good. I've told George, this does not look good. So the press comes to me, Byron, don't you think he needs to resign? Don't you think he needs to resign? Don't you think he needs to resign? He told people this, he told people that. And I had to stop the press and I said, Richard Blumenthal, the senator from Connecticut, lied about his service in our military. He lied to the voters of Connecticut. He has now admitted that he lied, but he's still in the Senate. So I say to them, when Richard Blumenthal resigns for lying, then come talk to me about George Santos. Sorry, that's the way it is. But at the end of the day, we're gonna deal with the president. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, as a Republican, we got to understand the mission's clear. We're on a mission to save the country and and restore the republic, and we can't do that being divided. Now, if you have personal concerns about that, or there are concerns about temperaments or concerns about baggage, the other party does not care. And as a matter of fact, they want you to be concerned. Because when they are having to deal with those same concerns, and I talked about them with respect to matters that are grounds for impeachment, I don't see them batting an eye. They're not running around saying, oh my gosh, Joe Biden has to leave the White House and right now because this is too much baggage. They're not doing any of that. They accused a couple of reporters of being shills for the Republican Party, and these reporters are liberals. And they did it in open hearing. Talking about Matt Taibbi. Folks, Jonathan, I'm gonna give it to you, but I'm just telling you, I've seen enough. When our primary process is done, we got one job to do, and that's it.
Yeah, on the political parties, there's absolutely, without question, a double standard that, especially mainstream media, establishment media, that works against us. And when I say us, I mean people like you who want to be informed, who take time out of your day. Busy days, we have parents, we have retirees, workers, people from all walks of life here that want to learn more information. And you come to these things because you know you're not getting the full story from the people who claim to give you the best facts, and you can rely and count on their version of events throughout the day. It's unfortunate that so many people in our communities get information that is not fully accurate. It's whether intentionally or unintentionally, I'll leave that decision to you, leaves facts that are twisted or slanted in a certain direction. We have to get more information, and that's one thing that I like about the party system, the local party system. Local Republicans, local Democrats, local Libertarians, you get information. You show up, you're getting something different. You're getting something different than what a bunch of producers with maybe Ivy League education decided that you want to watch between 6 o'clock and 6:05 before the weather, before the sports, and before Jeopardy. You're getting actual information, you're having a conversation, you're having a debate, what churches used to be, like what this church is doing. You have the opportunity to learn. So political parties provide that avenue. They provide you a voice. And without that voice, a lot of us are going to have a lot more distrust of government. The difference from what I've seen, though, between, and I'll even tie this in with a local bill, or a bill that we passed this year in Tallahassee. We're going to have a school board superintendent election next year that's partisan. And we have a great nonpartisan elected official here with us, Mayor of Fort Myers, Kevin Anderson, and he's a great individual. But he had to work extremely difficult in the city of Fort Myers election to let people know what he believed. And some people use their political parties as a crutch and say, well, I'm a Republican, so therefore all the Republicans will vote for me, or I'm a Democrat, I'm never going to vote for a Democrat. That's lazy. But it does provide a starting point for getting information about somebody's ideology. And you can press them on that. There are Republicans that I don't agree with. There are some Democrats I don't agree. So there are some issues. There are some particular issues that some Democrats have that they agree on, that I agree on. But we can't stop at political party. We have to look deeper. But it's a starting point. It's a starting point. Don't use it as a crutch. Use it as an opportunity to dig deeper into somebody's political views. And if we do that, the party system will work better than other ways that humans over the course of history have tried to identify with other people. We want to make sure that the decisions that we're making in Tallahassee and DC on the local level reflect our beliefs. And we should be able to agree on the facts. And that's what's changed a lot over the last few years. We're in the post-fact era. Cable news ushered us into that. And now everybody here can scroll through the same social media, and you're going to see what your friends said and how they interpreted this event. And you're going to further pull yourself away from what the facts might be. And this is something that happens to everybody on all sides. So I encourage you, be involved in your political parties, be involved in the conversations, but don't get sucked into these little social media manufactured rabbit holes that are designed just to suck you in and sell you ads. And when you do that, we can maybe have a real debate and we can talk. And the media that calls our representative in Congress and says, hey, tell us about your colleague and why you're not asking him to resign. Maybe they won't ask those questions because they know their viewers aren't going to fall for that. But they're going to keep doing it if they're getting viewers, if they're selling ads, and if they're making money. There are other avenues of information, getting information across, that are getting better. We're having more information, but we got to really, really guard ourselves from getting sucked into those individual rabbit trails. We got to be able to find what the facts are, come to places like this. Thank you, Congressman, for doing this. Guys, It's an absolute honor to have somebody like Congressman Donalds representing you, representing me and my family. Because he gets it. He doesn't, we know where he stands politically. I haven't seen anybody less afraid to tell anybody what they think than this guy. Except maybe his wife, I don't know. Eric, she'll tell you what she thinks as well.
Hey, that's enough, man.
That's enough? All right. So, but we have him up here doing what's right. Not every congressional district, 435 in the country, has somebody like this guy. So we're seeing it. He's explaining it to us in a way that, you know, I've been to a couple town halls from our past congressmen, and a lot of people just seem to scream and shout in opposition to him. And you have the ability to communicate very complicated ideas in a very understandable, across the aisle, bipartisan, whatever you call it. But I just call it, he's a good communicator, and he explains very complicated issues and makes it very simple. If the media could do this, we'd have a lot less division in our country. And then once we can agree on the facts and what we're dealing with, then let's bring in our beliefs. I believe less government will solve the problem. I believe more government will solve the problem. Then we can have those actual debates on how to get those things done. But we got to agree on the facts. And I think that's frankly the thing that's tearing our country apart the most. It's not the political parties, it's not the partisan, we're smart people, right? And we're smart because we recognize we don't know everything. But the second we start to see the facts and get the actual information, we'll start making better decisions about our elected officials. And I think we'll prosper and we'll leave a better country for our kids.
Oh, you have a question?
Somebody tripped up and asked me a question.
They messed up and gave you a question?
I think they did.
Well, you got to wait now. You just answered the last question. You got to wait.
All right, I'll wait.
Okay. Hold on to that question.
Just be short this time.
No, I won't be shorter this time. Moodle Gaston. Moody. Oh, that's a Y. My fault. I'm sorry, Moody. My fault. Are we fighting evil, and should we address as such? I think we should. So here's what I think, Moody. I think that we are fighting a couple of battles internally. I think, and this is off of what Jonathan was saying, we're fighting a division just amongst Americans as people. And this is a different division that has been fought in the past. We've had racial divisions, that is clear. We've had economic divisions, that is clear. But we're now having a cultural division in our country. And this cultural division, in my view, is, whether you want to call it common sense or Judeo-Christian values or traditional values or whatever the case might be, you have just a difference between that and an anti-family, and anti-biology. A difference between just forms of governments and economic systems, meaning, you know, capitalism versus communism, or like how I like to really say, because kind of where it's kind of come to, it's like this weird mercantilism. This is super technical now, this weird mercantilism versus free market capitalism. Like, these are real divides in our country, and it's based upon information flow. You know, a lot of times these days, when I talk to a citizen or a voter, I like to listen first, because just by listening, I could tell kind of where your information flow is coming from. Because then I could be like, oh, okay, this person, they typically watch this or they read this. And then it's not saying that they're wrong, but that's the information they're receiving. So, you know, it's like the Bible says, out of the mouth, the heart flows. Well, that's exactly right. And so what's in here and what's in here and what is fed into that is what people are saying, and they're disseminating. So do I think that we're battling evil? I do. Yes, sir.
The reason why I think all of us should understand one thing for sure, and I think that's the only way we're going to defeat what we're fighting against. Evil hates negotiating is good. And we, as good, decent Christian people, conservatives that love our country, our liberty, we should understand, we must understand that we have to address it as it is. We are fighting against evil. We got to call it out, and we got to take action against it. We can't not negotiate with evil. I think every one of us must understand.
I agree.
This guy here, we were born and raised at the same time. I think you're a great guy. You're a smart young man. And I think people in your position, and I think you're doing a great job. I think that evil should be called out more. I think we should call the Democrat Party, because there's no Democrat Party anymore. My mother was a Democrat. We are fighting against the USCP, which I deem the United States Communist Party that is running our country right now. They have already taken it. And we have to be for real. We have to stop playing with these people. You guys cannot be afraid to be called racist. You and me and this guy here and every black man here cannot be afraid to be called Uncle Tom, which I am glad to be called Uncle Tom if they knew who Uncle Tom was. We have to stand up, face this evil. We have to take action against it. We can't play with these people. You cannot negotiate with evil. We have to remember that.
Look, I agree. I think you're 100% right. And it's not just, listen, it's not just about politics. It's about children. It's about values. It's about ideas. Like I did a town hall when I was in the state legislature, and there was a young black kid there. He was about 22. He went to one of our colleges here, and he stood up in the town hall. And he goes to me. He goes, "I just don't think I could be successful in America." And it really took me back. Like I had to take a step back and like look at my hands, and I was like, "Bro, like what you talking about?" Like, I'm a city kid. I came here 21 years ago now. That's when I moved to Southwest Florida. It's kind of worked out for me. I'm pretty successful. I'm left alone. I raise my kids. They're doing what they have to do. And I think that we have to really teach kids to understand that all things are possible, especially in this country. Especially in this country. And this actually speaks to the previous question about us being united. Like if we're busy arguing with ourselves about who can win and who can do this and who can do that, the other side, man, they're loving this. They're just gonna sit back like this and be like, ooh, look, we did it. They're separated, we're good. That's what the enemy does. Ooh, look, they're divided, cool. They don't even have to do anything anymore. They watch us argue with each other. And so I just think that's wrong. I think that's wrong. Okay. Jeffrey Congelosi.
Don't grab a question too.
Oh, I haven't forgotten, but I'm taking two. This is a similar question. What could be done to better unify the party? Being fractured won't help us counter a misguided Democrat machine. Kind of addressed that one, so I'm gonna move on. Sorry, that one don't count. Mason Weaver, how do we captivate Democrat voters? Ooh, this is a good one. I'm gonna talk about this one, then Jonathan, I'm gonna let you go. Sorry. I looked at you real briefly, and your beard looked like Jason Smith, who's Ways and Means chairman. So that's why I said Jason instead of Jonathan. But hold on.
Sounds like Jason's a good-looking guy then.
No, he's not actually. But hold on. How do we capture Democrat voters? This is a good one. This is a good question. I've been saying this for a while. My wife is here, so she hears my heart. She knows. She's in the back. Honey, stand up. And so here's what I'll say about capturing Democrat voters. I think all people desire a couple things. People desire knowledge. People desire to be free. People desire health and happiness. and they desire an ability to see if there's a pathway to be successful. I think all people desire that. But in order to capture the heart of a voter, to capture the mind of a voter, you first have to capture the heart of a voter. For you gentlemen in this room, before you could ever capture the mind of your female, you had to capture her heart first. She had to realize that you actually cared for her, that you didn't just think she was cute. Because anybody could think she's cute, but she's not going to give you her hand if you don't care for her. This is not politics. This is relationships we're talking about now. Hi, honey, I know you hear my heart and I love you. I give this example a lot. I've done it sometimes when my wife is here, sometimes when she's not here, but I'm very consistent with the example because it's true. If you are trying to date a girl who's seeing another guy, the thing you don't do is tell the girl that she is dumb for dating that guy. You don't do that. Every woman is nodding her head. Because when you do that, what you're saying is that she is not smart and you're invalidating her choices. You don't want to do that, guys. And so as a conservative, I don't go to Democrat voters and say, man, you are stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. No, I don't do that. Because they've made choices in their life. If I'm trying to talk to said lady, dating another guy, I just be like, hey, I totally understand what you're going through. If you ever need somebody, I'm here. Let's talk about it. And you go from there. My wife is in the back, honey, I love you, and you hear my heart. I love you. I love you. But with voters, it's no different. If they think a different way about politics, how about we just go and figure out what's going on in their world, what's going on in their life? Ask the question. And here's another thing, fellas. If a lady starts talking to you, shut up and let her talk. She's clapping heavy over there. She's like, yeah, that's it. And if a Democrat voter or a nonpartisan voter is talking to you about the things that they're upset about, listen. Don't even give them an answer. Just listen and say, thank you for sharing that with me. I really want to think about that. And then as you build a relationship, if you then have solutions for that person, then they'll be like, dang, you know what? Man, I like that Jonathan Martin. He really brought me something that helped me. I got to think about that guy. That's how you persuade other voters, in my view. Okay, Jonathan, you up.
Y'all thought you were just going to get some political advice and some updates on legislation, but here we are, the relationship king.
That's 20 years of a lot of work. Oh, by the way, my wife and I, we celebrated 20 years this year.
That's awesome.
You saw how I caught that kiss from the back. Caught it, put it right here. You guys are going to figure that out when you go home. That's good stuff.
Some kid's going to be speaking at as a valedictorian of a public high school here in about 20 years and say, my parents met at a Byron Donalds town hall when he told my dad how to shut up and listen to my mom.
Just name them after me. Then life will go well with them.
All right. So on a completely unrelated topic, all right, question from Vicky Rezor. All right. Help us understand how it's possible that we're seeing indecency and nudity of adults in our public spaces in front of children. Well, the how, I feel like we just had an explanation earlier. There's evil in our world, and we can't compromise with evil. I don't have to have professional experience I used to be a special victims prosecutor when I was here at the state attorney's office. And the people who prey on little kids they possess a different kind of evil. If they want forgiveness, it's not beyond the forgiveness that God can give, but it's beyond the level of forgiveness that society is required to give them. This past year, I was able to pass a number of bills, but the bill that I worked on the hardest and the bill that was the hardest to present was the bill that the governor signed into law 2 months ago that is going to, it's the first time in at least 50 years that any state has made the crime of molesting a child under the age of 12 punishable by death. And as I said in Tallahassee in committee and on the floor, I hope it's a crime that we never have to prosecute. I hope it's a punishment that we never have to seek. Because if we have to seek that punishment, it means that the worst of the worst happened to one of our kids in Florida. So that being the framework, we hear a lot of confusion. And going back to what we were talking about earlier, facts. We got to have the facts in order to make decisions. That penalty that I'm talking about, that bill that we passed, overwhelming support in the Florida Senate from Democrats and Republicans. Because there's things that we can agree. Amen. There's things that we can agree on. That's one of those. It's a foundational issue. But when we start talking about the other issues that surround this topic, nudity in front of kids, there's what the news says and there's what the law says. The news has been less than accurate. The news has been so less than accurate on these issues. We heard the Don't Say Gay bill, the phrasing of that from last year. And then instead of Disney World seeing that many of their employees are illiterate and that they can't read legislation and they can't read the law, instead of saying, hey guys, we're going to have some reading classes. We're going to teach you some phonics. We're going to teach you how to combine letters to form words and how those words form sentences and how those sentences can sometimes be written into law. Instead of doing that, Disney Corporation said, we're going to get behind our illiterate employees who don't know how to read Florida law. And that messaging was damaging because what we were trying to do was protect little kids from being exposed to adult situations and adult themes and adult topics. And I'm not talking about teenagers, we're talking about third graders and younger. That was the Don't Say Gay bill. So we expanded that this year because we saw these other issues that were happening. Drag shows, wet t-shirt contests. Not just homosexuals or transvestites, every gamut. It doesn't matter who you sleep with at night. It matters that you're showing your sexual organs to minors. That's a problem, and that's what Florida has done. Those are laws that Florida has passed to protect our little kids. And if compromise is okay when you're talking about budgets, right? Compromise is okay when you're talking about, all right, is the new road going to go through this neighborhood or that neighborhood? Compromise is okay in a lot of government. Compromise is not okay when you're dealing with evil. And that's what that topic is, and we have to protect our kids at all costs. I will do that as long as I have the ability to do it, and I know our congressman will do the same.
Real quick, I know we do have, and Jonathan, you mentioned that we have a couple elected officials in the room. So real quick, if you're here and I see you, just kind of come down a little bit so people can see and be recognized. We definitely have our mayor here in Fort Myers. Kevin Anderson is here. walking down the aisle, we have a good friend of mine, and I'm not saying you're not, Kevin, but good friend of mine, Lee County School Board member, Miss Melissa Gianovelli is here. All the way from Collier County, we have Tim Moshier, Collier County School Board member is here. Oh my gosh, Mrs. Ribble, you're here. Hello, I didn't even see you back there. You good? I know. It's the I'm gonna come to you in a second, Armor. Stay right there. Vice Mayor for Estero, Mrs. Ribble is here with us. She's here. It's good to see you. And then Lee County School Board member Armor Persons is here with us. Armor, how you doing? All right. Now that's it. Just want to make sure you guys are recognized. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. All right, no problem. Okay, so a couple things. We've been officially in overtime, but I think y'all are having fun. If you say no, that's okay, I understand. A couple of last minute things, we're gonna wrap them up. I'm gonna move a little bit faster now. Jay Higgins, Cape Coral. How can the U.S. continue to fund the Ukraine war? Can't Congress stop this unabated and untracked money? How much is unaccounted for? So this is a great question, Jay. We continue to fund the Ukraine war simply because it's now become a proxy war. And that's why it's being funded. Now, a couple things. The United States has agreed to protect Ukrainian sovereignty, and that's not new. That's the 1994 Bucharest Agreement that was signed by Boris Yeltsin, Bill Clinton, I keep forgetting who was Prime Minister of England at the time, and actually the President of Ukraine at the time. And the purpose of that agreement was, and this was after the fall of the Soviet Union, Ukraine had nuclear weapons because it was part of the USSR. So the agreement was that Ukraine would give the nukes back to Russia, and in return, us, England, Russia, would protect Ukrainian sovereignty. That is an agreement that we've made as a nation. Now, I don't agree with what's transpired, but I do think that if the United States says we're going to do something, we should do it. I do agree with that. We have spent, all told, about $100 billion on the efforts in Ukraine. About $45 billion of that has gone directly to Ukrainian efforts. Some of it has gone to paying for food, for refugee displacement, helping with refugee displacement, for restocking military stockpiles within our military and also with NATO. So that's kind of the big buckets of what's occurred. The issue in terms of accounting is the 45 billion or so, or frankly, probably 55 billion when you take in all the refugee programs that has gone over to Ukraine, and nobody has no earthly idea of what was spent on who. The reason why this is a concern is because the United States just got finished spending a lot of money in Afghanistan. And I will tell you, we were funding soldiers that did not exist. That has occurred. So this is why, for me and a lot of my colleagues, this goes back to how are we going to change things? We've been very clear. We're not voting for a Ukrainian supplemental if there's not real accountability measures in that money that's being spent. Because until that occurs, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do that anymore. I think with respect to what's happened in Ukraine, listen, we'll see what occurs over the next couple of months. You know, this summer offensive is going on. Other countries are now committed to doing this. But at the end of the day, we didn't have to be here. Vladimir Putin was amassing troops on the Ukrainian border for 6 months. Joe Biden did nothing. He watched it happen. This is not a partisan statement. These are the facts. We all saw the troop buildup. We knew it. We didn't act. At any point, he could have easily said, oh, no, this ain't going to happen. Vladimir, if this happens, this is going to be our response. Cut that mess out. I know a guy who was president who did that. I know a guy. So that's where I think we are right now.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Sure. Go ahead, Kim. Actually, this one is yours. You hold that.
So I appreciate what you said about. I appreciate what you said about our obligation to Ukraine. My question is, what about our obligation to our sovereignty and our borders?
Oh, that's a great question. Great question. So in the House, we passed the H.R. 2, the strongest border security package the House has ever passed. The Senate saw that and just said, okay. And they didn't even bring it up for debate or discussion in the Senate. The quickest path to securing our border, in my belief, is twofold. Number one, this is one of the things, incidentally, with appropriations we're fighting over, is to have border security be a part of the appropriations package. Why would we fund the Department of Homeland Security that does not actually secure the homeland? That makes no sense. Why would we do that? So that's one of the fights that we're having. That we're going to have it with the Senate and with the White House. Number two, the quickest way is we're going to need a new president of the United States. Because enforcement of our laws, and this is under a Supreme Court ruling back in 2015 actually, when Arizona made a change to their criminal laws where they would ask you if you were in the country illegally, and the media and people on the left side of our politics were like, that's xenophobia, you can't do it. That sounds good when you live in Manhattan, but when you live on the southern border and you have to deal with this every day, it's not xenophobia, this is safety. That's what this is. And so I think we got to take this incredibly seriously. Look, we have an administration that has allowed the drug cartels to make about $12 to $15 billion a year, trafficking people into our country. That's what they're making. It's flat out wrong. So whether we're talking about appropriations or the next presidential election, those are the areas where this is going to be addressed. Now, the long-term ramifications of this. I think by all estimates, by the time Joe Biden is done, there'll be roughly 8 to 10 million more people in the country on asylum. The truth is about the asylum process is only 3 to 5% of the people actually go to the second asylum hearing. They go to the first one to get documents and they disappear, never to be seen again. My view is, this is a legal protocol now. My view is that we have to supercharge those asylum proceedings as quickly as we can. If there are people who do not show, they must be deported immediately. No questions asked. And here's why you got to do this. And people might say, man, that's tough. Why would you do that? People just want to come for a better life. I agree. But you cannot have porous borders and a porous law. If you do that, people take advantage of it. That's why there are 86 people on a terror watch list that have come through our southern border since Joe Biden has taken office. 86. They're on a terror watch list. They attempted to come through our southern border. The 86 are the ones that we caught. Let me posit it that way for you. So you can't continue this anymore. And I think, Mayor, to your point, that's what's happened, and I think those are the fixes to repair it. Melissa Higgins, Cape Coral. Why are weapons sent to Ukraine now being sold to the Mexican cartels? Can't these be stopped and money and weapons sent to Ukraine be accounted for? A similar thing, this is the first I'm hearing about to the Mexican cartels. What I'm going to do, Melissa, is let me talk with some of my colleagues on foreign affairs about this one, because that's the first I've heard of that. So let me talk with them about that, but I think I kind of addressed about Ukraine and money there. Jose, Cape Coral. We both came out of liberal Democrat in New York City. You, Brooklyn, New York, me, East Harlem. There's more New York City people here. New York people are always, always around. How can you continue to get more African Americans and Latinos to the Republican Party? Actually, Jose, this is a great question. And I talked about a lot of it before, but I'm going to tell you from a different angle. And Larry sees it when we travel and we're going around places. You'll get people who'll come up, they're black, they're Latino, and they'll kind of be like, hey, are you? And like me, when I'm traveling, like I'm zoned out. I got headphones on, I got sunglasses on, I'm traveling, and people will stop, and he'll be like, hey, this person, and I'll stop and we'll talk. And I'm like, yeah, I'm him. And they go, hey man, we just watching you. We like what you're doing. Just keep going. It's the truth, right? It's the truth. So, I think, when I ran to be your congressman, like I told you, I was going to take the message of conservatism everywhere, even though I know not everybody in our district agrees with conservative policies. But that's what I was going to do. And I've been committed to that, and I'm not going to stop. And I think that there's a lot of people who see different things on news clips, especially when I do like CNN and MSNBC. They'll be like, wait a minute, who's it? Wait, what's going on? My cousin actually, my cousin sent me a new text last night. I haven't even responded to him yet. He goes, y'all want me to read it to you? Hold on, let me read you the text from my cousin. My cousin's gonna be like, man, what you doing? Let me read my text messages. Nah, Anderson Cooper doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Where's it at? Hold on. It's my cousin. He goes, yo, Holmes, love it. Keep slamming Biden to your best advantage. That's all he said. Love it. Keep slamming Biden. That's what he texted me. That's my cousin. Look, I think that, as long as people just stand bold and speak clearly, you don't have to like be angry. Like, I don't think I'm angry. I'm just very direct. But I think as long as you're direct, you present the facts, let people draw their own conclusions. And I think we'll be fine. Victor in Cape Coral, do you feel any pressure to conform to the status quo? No. Have I felt isolation because of my views or pushback against the party? It's not so much about my views. I mean, I'll be really like open about this one. Yeah, Congress is pretty isolating. Like I told my wife, I was like, I don't talk to as many people. Like, if I know you, I'll talk to you. If I don't know you, I'll be like, hey, who's this person? And you try to just make sure you engage and have a real dialogue. But I don't too much worry about what people think. I just do my job, and that's it. You just do your job. And I think like, the schedule is so crazy now, I'm either talking with my staff or, talking with friends or talking with my wife or talking with my kids. And by that time, I'm ready to go to sleep. Like it's been a long day. But you just work hard. You work hard, just keep moving forward, keep pushing. People coming up to you kind of justifies a lot of things, especially when it's people just randomly on the street come up to you that you don't know. And they'll tell you things like, hey, I'm a Democrat, but I like you. Okay, that's cool. Appreciate you, man, You want to read that one? You do or you don't? You should. You sure? All right, you go ahead. And I got the last one over here. Go ahead.
All right, this has to do with insurance. Ooh. Raise your hand if you had to make an insurance claim because of Hurricane Ian. Keep your hand up if the insurance company did what they needed to do to get your property repaired. All right. So there's not as many hands were left up as initially went up. So we have an interesting, and I could talk about this for hours, but I will not talk about it for hours. It's good that, yeah. So we passed some bills this year to deal with the crisis. They didn't fix everything. My rates went up for my homeowners. My rates went up a lot for my auto. I got ideas trying to get as much accountability for insurance companies, not because I hate insurance companies, but because I like you guys getting what you paid for. But I also need to make sure that the insurance companies who don't exist in Florida move to Florida so that you can have more choices about where to go. So if your insurance company jacks up the rates, you have more than 2 other companies to go quote you. We got to deal with Citizens, because if Citizens fails, everybody in this room, regardless of whether you have Citizens, picks up the tab. So there's a whole lot going on. We're going to keep working on it. If you have any problems, any questions, call my office. But you're not alone. Everyone's struggling. A lot of people have made claims. The governor knows it. Tallahassee knows it. I know it. I'm living it. You're my people, my friends, my family that live here. You're all going through it with me. I'm going through it with you. So we'll get through it, and we're going to keep fixing this thing until we get it right.
Everyone that I manage is going through the same thing. They're jacking it up so much that it's absolutely stupid.
Yeah, I was, before I came here this evening, I was on Fort Myers Beach this afternoon with Mayor Andlers going through a lot of the stuff that's been done, the stuff that still needs to be done, and he talked to me directly about the insurance assessments on condos, especially those beachfront condos, and it is, yes, it is going through the roof. I totally agree with you. So I know at the state level they did some things, they're going to continue to do more things because we're going to have to fix it. I got some other ideas, but I don't get to do that anymore. I'm at the federal level. But we'll talk. There might have to be some regional consortiums.
How about I trade you one federal idea and you can trade me for one state idea?
No, I don't like your federal ideas. But no,
we get stuff done in Florida, so you actually might have a shot.
Yeah, I
at getting
know.
it done.
I was there. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Agreed. Yes, ma'am. Okay, last question. And then we're going to close. This is from Gordon in Fort Myers. Why do you think Trump can beat Biden since he lost to him already? And independents dislike him, especially women. All right.
I didn't write that question.
Well, the concern is that he lost him already, and independents dislike him, especially women. Gordon?
I have a better question. We've been talking for like 2 hours almost, and I have yet to hear one word about what GOP is going to do for the working class. By the way, my name is Christopher Croy. I'm running for state legislature.
Oh, well, if you don't mind, I'll add it in. I'm gonna address this question. I'm gonna add in your question as well. So a couple things. One, I think that every presidential election is different. I think that if you look at the next presidential election in the lens of the last presidential election, that's like fighting the last war. That never works. You have to address the battle in front of you, not the battle that was behind you. the dynamics. And look, this is where the political consultants and the pundits disagree with me. But the problem for them is I'm typically right and they're wrong. And so, even when our own pundits and consultants do something silly, in my view, like not be prepared to deal with abortion in various districts, and they get shocked about why they had no message, I told them, you gotta be ready to deal with this because it's gonna be a thing. They didn't listen. It is what it is. We are where we are right now. I think in 2024, you're going to have a discussion amongst voters, independent voters. If it's Donald Trump and Joe Biden, it's going to be essentially the Pepsi Taste Challenge. Like which one's better? Because people have seen President Trump be president. They've seen Joe Biden be president. They're not going to be caught up with the drama and the soap opera that is cable news, because I think at this point, people are they've seen it, they're like, oh, okay, well, everybody's corrupt, and they just move on. It's now becoming noise. There's a theory in marketing, it's called marginal utility. And so every ad you run has less impact because you keep running the ads. It's like if you see the same billboard every day, you start to black out the billboard because you've seen it every day. You don't need to see it anymore. You know the message. I think in 2024, it's going to be a choice of which person did it better. And that's why I think that Donald Trump could be successful against Joe Biden in 2024. Issue number 2, if you look at right track, wrong track, who can handle the economy better, Donald Trump is favored by 30 points. So when people say, oh, who do I like? That's just a like thing. But we've been in and out of COVID-19. We've seen schools shut down. We've seen economies shut down. We've had the CDC lie to us. We've had the FBI interfere with information. We see scandals on both sides. Whether they're true or not is irrelevant. The scandals exist on both sides. I think people are just kind of done with it, and what they want is competency. And I think without question, if you ask voters who's more competent, and they take their emotions out of it, they'll say Donald Trump. Last thing I'll say on it, and this is kind of a rehash of an earlier point, and I'm gonna come to your point. A rehash from an earlier point is, what do we do internally as a party? For people who wanna support the governor and other people, and this is probably more for the donor community, and some of them are happy with me now, some of them aren't, but it's whatever. Listen, guys, I don't really care who you want to invite to your dinner table. That's irrelevant. Like, I never voted for president because I wanted to have dinner with him. I voted for who I think could do the best job. And I will add, even when it comes to I'm not looking for our president to be our moral leader. I'm not looking for a pastor. I have a pastor. Because if I don't like the church, if I don't like the pastor, I just go to a new church. But I'm looking for a president. I'm looking for somebody who can get the job done. See, there's less applause on that because some people don't agree with that. I'm telling you my thoughts. I'm telling you mine. There are no pure people in politics. Zero. They do not exist. We all have frailties. We all have faults. There are things that we don't do well. There are things that we do wrong. Everybody's got that. The question is, who's going to do the best job? Period. So I think that's your question in 24. Now, specifically, to what do Republicans want to do for people in the middle class, lower class, etc.? There's a couple things that are really hurting our small businesses, not just here in Southwest Florida, but across the country. If you're a mom and pop, you're struggling just getting access to capital. So what's the Republican plan for that? Actually reforming a bunch of the regulations that have happened to the banking system. In 2010, they passed this thing called Dodd-Frank, 2009, excuse me. And they said, this will stop too big to fail. They said, this is gonna reform the banks and everything's gonna be okay. What actually happened was the big banks got massively bigger And the community banks that actually lent to mom and pop businesses, they lent to fledgling black businesses or fledgling Hispanic businesses or fledgling white businesses. Those banks closed, or those banks got sucked in by regional banks and large banks because they can't deal with the compliance costs. If you can't get capital to a fledgling small business, how do you expect that fledgling small business to be able to grow and support the business owner and support the other employees? That's one. Number two, whoa, I'm trying to, let me explain, hold on. I got something on that. Number two, I think when it comes to tax policy should be simple, not complex. Hiring thousands and thousands, 87,000 or whatever the number is of IRS agents, that doesn't help anybody. All that does is make the IRS bureaucracy bigger. Because who are those agents going after? They're not going after the rich guy, because guess what? The IRS agents are already doing that. That's why rich guys have tax accountants. So you have the IRS accountants and you have the guys' accountants, and they're going back and forth with the IRS. You hire all these agents to go after people who are middle class, to get every single dollar out of them. You do that to go after people who are 1099 employees. And who are those? Those are your door dashers. Those are your Uber, people who do Uber and Lyft and stuff like realtors. They're going after those people. Those people are just trying to make ends meet, build a life, create something for themselves. Why are you sicking the IRS after them? That's wrong. I don't agree with that. Number three, we have to actually stop the overprinting of money. When you allow more money to be printed by the Federal Reserve, what ends up happening is you destroy purchasing power. And when you destroy purchasing power, who suffers are poor people. Not rich people, they're good. They got enough money to deal with purchasing power. Oh, so my new Porsche now costs $85,000 instead of $82,000. I mean, big whoop if you're rich. But if you're a single mom and you got to buy a new Toyota Civic, a new Honda Civic, my bad Toyota, a new Honda Civic, and you're trying to buy that and the cost went from $24,000 to $31,000, that is eviscerated her pocketbook. How's she getting ahead? Number four, these energy standards. This party is telling people that you have to now buy an electric car to save the planet. But an electric car costs more than the average American makes in a year. How is that helping them? It doesn't. And then when you add, if you double the amount of electric cars to the electric grid, there's not enough electricity on the grid to power them. So you're gonna have blackouts and brownouts. Now that's cool if you have a generator on your house, but if you don't and you're requiring electricity from the grid and your costs go up, who does that hurt more? That hurts poor people. Number five, when you go to education, and I've been a long-standing person on this, when you are a poor kid growing up in the inner city and you are redlined into your school that is failing you, the number one thing that kid needs is for his mom and dad to have the ability to send them somewhere else. Because that education starts their life off in a different point. That's not a talking point, that's my life. I was in PS 235. I was there. My mom pulled me. She said, they're not gonna educate my son. They're not gonna get my son what he needs. She pulled me out, used money she didn't have, but found a way, put me in a private school. I was able to learn and excel and build my life. If you're trying to have an economic strategy for people to get ahead in our country, it starts with how they're educated and giving them the tools to be successful in our economy. Number six, well, I got more, we got a lot of more. Number six, colleges. Sending kids to get a degree in liberal arts or humanities or communications and them having like $75,000 in student loans when they're done is dumb policy. We should not be doing that to young people. If we're gonna let you borrow the money, if we're gonna say borrow the money to go get a degree, I have a finance degree. I borrowed money to get it. It worked out because in finance, you could monetize and figure it out. You're economically viable and go make money, and then you can grow up the income ladder. But if you have a degree in art history and you spent $100,000 to get it, and now you have the student loans associated with that, but you can't get a job paying you anything but $35,000 a year, that's a bad system to put people in. We should not be doing that. In my view, we should actually create a funding formula for loans. And so if you're gonna major in engineering, cool, borrow as much money as you want, because you're gonna be an engineer, and you're gonna be able to make enough money to pay your loans and buy a house and buy cars, take your kids on vacation and do all the rest. But if you're gonna major in art history or journalism, ooh, pump the brakes. I can't lend you that much money for that. It's not economically viable. So you're starting off already behind the 8 ball. Then you move into the economy, you're wondering why you're being left behind. And that is because government policy has allowed you to be behind. Then they want to say, ooh, it's not your fault, we're gonna bail you out. No, it's not their fault, it's the government's fault. We gotta change that. That's number 6. Number 7, and I'm gonna stop at 7. Number 7. No. In our country, when it comes to the rules to be able to get a permit, when it comes to the rules to be able to get an apprenticeship, we have to continue to cut that down. In Florida, we've allowed more people to be able to get certifications without all these hours for them to be able to get into that workforce. Instead of you having to go and sit for these exams, get on the job and find a way to learn that stuff. If you're in high school, why are we sending you to university when you're not sure you even want to go? When you can get a car tech certification and come out making $80,000 right out of high school. That's economic mobility right there. And if you have to retrain, then the certification process to retrain should be a lot simpler for people moving from one job to another. Now I get it, there's technical things that every job is gonna require that you have, but you gotta do that. But if you give people the ability to move in and out of these fields by cutting the regulatory burden in state and federal governments about the hours you need in order to qualify, as long as you keep safety at the forefront, that helps open up opportunities for people to succeed. And maybe it's not where they are, it's where they need to get to. And you make that more clear. And I know I said that was the last one, but number 8, and I'm gonna re-stress it. And I'm gonna re-stress it. If the cost of buying goods and services continues to go up because government can't control its spending, that hurts everybody. Everybody. And look, I don't care if somebody's rich in this room. Congratulations. I want to be rich too. Congratulations. I'm not mad at you. I respect you. Good job. You did it. Congratulations. But we shouldn't be setting up tax policy and rules that hold other people from being able to achieve that. I was talking with a bunch of entrepreneurs in the digital asset space. And these entrepreneurs were talking to me about what they needed in order to excel because they love digital assets, they're building their business, they're small entrepreneurs they're building. And they're concerned about what's happening in Washington because Washington wants to pass some crazy policy about digital assets. And I said, you guys gotta fight that with everything you can, because it's great if Binance has their own fund and they're their own clearinghouse, but if the rules are so high that create barriers to entry of somebody poor trying to build something of themselves, how can they innovate and become that next person? How can they step in and gain the capital they need to grow their business? The founders of Home Depot will tell you now they can never build Home Depot today. Why? Because of government policy and government regulations. Not because there's not enough capital, not because there's not people who want to buy goods, it's because the government is standing in their way. I gave you 9 reasons. I gave you 9. All right, so we're gonna close. 2 things. 1, I just want to remind everybody that when it comes to the plant, the sterilization plant here locally, that we're personally, We're going to go over and view the plant, make sure all the upgrades that they say they're going to make have been made. And actually tomorrow we're going to have a call with the CDC about these apparent tests that are available for people who want to be able to get tests to see where they are, that they can. We're going to try to find a way to get that done. Last but not least, I really want to thank everybody from covering. I think we covered a lot. We went into overtime, and that's always cool. I want to thank Senator John Martin for being with us. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
And listen, there's a lot of issues still going to be covered. We're going to do our best. We're going to continue to work hard for you. I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. And God bless you all, and have a good evening.